What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Delta Omega Dynasty podcast. I'm your boy Joey Medina, aka Carl Weezer69. Let me be the first to welcome you to year 4 of our fantasy football league. Very excited. The season kicks off in about a month or so. Very happy to be back bringing you guys some content. Hopefully, you're happy to hear it. A lot to be discussed. Today's show will be all about the off season, moves that were made, players that were drafted, who had the best offseason, who had the worst offseason, as well as we'll dive into a little bit of preseason expectations, league projections, record projections, playoff projections, all that jazz. Should be a good one. Hopefully, you're excited. You're into this too because it did kind of take a lot of time, but I was more than happy to do it. Very interesting to see where we all stacked up. So, yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it. Before I can release my rankings, I'm going to tell you how it's going to work. I'm going through every team, starting. There's going to be a specific order, 12-1, based on the value of their off season, play a team's off season. For example, assets in versus assets out, based on keep trade cuts metrics. So could be good, could be bad. Take it with a grain of salt. So yeah, uh, basically, I went through every trade, every draft pick, put it in keep trade cut, came up with a numerical value, and then ranked all 12 of us. So it should be interesting to say the least. I'll offer a little bit of commentary, maybe a little bit of a season outlook. And then once I get through the list, we'll go into preseason preview, record predictions, playoff predictions, and all that. Make sense? Awesome. Awesome. All right. Don't get discouraged. The way I kind of measured it, obviously, the teams with more draft picks will obviously yield more positive value for their teams in the offseason. Like, for example, a team with 5 rookie picks versus a team with one, there's obviously going to be that much more value. I do have to throw that out there. Yeah, just something to think about. Anyways, let's get started at number 12 with a collective score of negative 8,859 points of value. Riley comes in at the last place, I guess. Big elephant in the room. He really did not have any draft picks. So it's kind of something to do with why he has such a low score. But I don't think he's really complaining about it either, don't you? I mean, he added Trevor Lawrence, he had AJ Brown, he had a Nick Chubb, George Kittle, I believe, as well. Yeah, and I guess in terms of picks, he added three twos, a first, and a third. Not a bad, not a bad assets coming in. But where I think he takes a hit on the score is what he gave up. Um, and I'll kind of like briefly break it down. I think he gave up players like, off the top of my head, Devontae Adams, Kyler Murray, picks 108 through 111, which I believe was Dalton Kincaid, Zach Charbonnet, Zay Flowers, and Bryce Young. 224 firsts, Jahan Dotson, Alexander Madison, and a 25 second round pick, which, in its totality seems like a ton, but I really, like I said, I really don't think he's complaining. That's a lot of good players he has coming in, but he did spend quite a bit to get them. That being said, and I think that is why he ends up here at in 12th place in terms of overall keep trade cut value. No draft picks also hurts as well, like I've mentioned before. So, like I said, the optics maybe don't look so good when it's all together. But like I said, he's not tripping. He's not tripping. Those moves allowed him to create a team that I think we could all agree is top 4 in the league. Um, yeah, I mean it's hard to argue with that. Uh, and a lot of rookies. I don't know. Those were 4 first round pick rookies, right? Other than Charbonnet, uh, they definitely could see their values increase. Could look a little whack, but I don't know. It's all subjective. To me, if I'm putting a letter grade on Riley's offseason, I'm going to give him a B. Uh, did have the least return on value, so it does seem like a weird grade. But I really do like the fact that he gave himself a real chance at the title this year, and he really just like pushed a bunch of chips in the table. Not to say that he went all in, but I do think he made a lot of moves and spent a lot of capital to get his team to where it is today. And hats off to him because it's a great team, if I'm being honest. So yeah, that is the reason I'm giving him a B, even though he comes in with the least valuable offseason in terms of what he brought in versus what he gave out. So yeah, anyways, um, in my initial power rankings, I think I'd have Riley around the 3 range. I think I put him at number 3. If I had to do make a definitive pick, I put him at 3. Moving on to number 11, we have Lewis, who scored negative 7,422 keep trade cut value points to his team. Now, it's kind of the same boat here for Lewis. Another win now team like Riley. Not a lot of draft picks. He did have one, the 112, which I believe was Jonathan Mingo, who we got in exchange for James Cook. Fair play. Could be pretty solid. Has a little bit of upside. Yeah, I don't hate it. Uh, and he also had a really interesting offseason too, if I can remember right. He had he made that stellar trade with Irv to to ship off DJ Moore for a 24 first and 24 second, which then turned into CD Lamb with the addition of another first round pick and Terry McLaurin. Big price to pay for CD, but you kind of have to get a guy of his caliber. Can't fault him for that. It also created probably the greatest wide receiver trio in the league, maybe definitely right now, but like maybe ever. Jefferson, CD Lamb, Jalen Waddle. I think all 3 of those guys were top 10 last year. That's pretty hype. He also acquired Dak Prescott, I think, for Tua straight up. And yeah, um, I guess in total, to sum up all of his moves, he gave up DJ Moore, 2 ones, a 2, Tua, James Cook, and Terry McLaurin for CD Lamb, Dak Prescott, and Jonathan Mingo. Now that I said that out loud, it seems a little steep for getting 3 players, but hey, you got to do what you got to do to get CD. I'll say that all day long. And that's, I think, for sure why he comes in at number 11 here on total value created over the offseason. Individually, though, when he made the deals, they all kind of made sense to me at the time. So maybe just them all together makes them seem a little worse than they actually are. But yeah, like I said, like I said with Riley, the like Lou was not tripping. That guy's roster is absolutely insane. There are no holes. I expect him to be one of the best teams in the league this year, as I imagine a lot of you guys do out there. In terms of an offseason grade, I think I'm going to give him a C plus, just because the negative value, what came in, what came out. CD Lamb by himself will take maybe a C minus otherwise graded offseason to a C plus just because of the caliber of player that he is. Um, but his roster is already pretty much set. So I really can't fault him for not making a ton more moves. But also, I do like some of the moves that he made, and I think he's built to win this year. Would not be surprised if he was the one winning it all at the end of the year. Lewis is ranked number 2 right now for me in my preseason power rankings. Moving on to number 10, we have Dakota, who added a value of plus 628 keep trade cut value points, as I'm going to keep saying over and over again. Dakota has added, like I said, 628 points to his roster. Dakota, he really had a saving grace trade. Not trade, his saving grace of the offseason, I should say, was the draft, right? He had 5 rookies, I believe, he drafted this year, 3 of which, Jordan Addison, Kendre Miller, and Sam Laporta, were all taken in the first 16 picks. It seems to me, and I think you guys would agree, Dakota took on the form of a rebuilding team. He sent a lot of his players, a lot of his roster's staples, I should even say, and Mark Andrews, James Conner, and Marquise Brown. He sent them away in the league's first 3-team trade, which was super cool. Yeah, and I guess in return he got more draft capital and a couple dart throw receivers, right? And Isaiah Hodgins and Nico Collins, I believe. Not to be disrespectful to those guys, but I think they're a dart throw for now. It's kind of unclear how much his rookers. It's kind of unclear how much, what do you call it? How much contributions his rookies will make this year is, I guess, what I'm trying to say, especially right away. He does have a few holes that need to be filled on that roster. Of course, he's still got Jalen Hurts. He's still got Tony Pollard, two studs. The problem with that is it's going to be hard for them to carry that team when the league is so full of absolute monster teams. It's just not going to go well with him when he's only got two really viable guys. And of course, um, I think for his team to really make any noise and maybe even to go a little bit further outside of the top or outside of the bottom five, I've really got to think Kendre Miller, Sam Laporta, Jordan Addison will have to be big contributors this year for that team to eke out of the bottom five, honestly, in my opinion. I've said this before on other podcasts that, the league as it currently sits is kind of bracketed off. You've got the bottom four, which I would say, Tommy, me, Max, Dakota. Then you've got the middle three, which is Jansen, Irv, and Hunter. And then you've got the rest, which I think is Trevor, Kyle, Riley, Lewis, and Liam, who are championship contenders. That's where I kind of think. I know we're still talking about Dakota, but it kind of feels weird for him to like leap into the maybe make the playoffs. He's done it before. He's had a history of widely exceeding league expectations for his teams as he's finished third pretty much every year. As far as a grade goes for his offseason, I think I'm going to give him a D plus only because it, you give up those good players, right? And then you also you get some return. You get a couple firsts, a couple dart throw receivers, but you also don't own your pick when you blow it up, right? In the previous year. And that's where I kind of got a little bit confused on why Dakota decided to rebuild this year. Because if he's bad, he's not going to own that pick. And it's just, what are you doing at that point? You might as well just try to go again and see maybe if you can make any noise. But I do respect it. Maybe he thought, man, there's no way I can compete with these teams. I'm just going to pack it in and get value while I can. So I can't fault him for that. But for me, and I know it's subjective, I'm going to give him a D plus as an offseason grade. As far as my preseason power rankings, Dakota is ranked number 10. I've kind of broken down why, to be honest. Moving on to number 9, we have Irv adding 706 in total keep trade cut value to his team during the offseason. I'm sure you're not surprised, but Irv was one of the least active traders in the offseason this year. He only added one rookie and he only made one trade. He took A-Chain at the 205, which still kind of seems like good value today, but I'm also not super thrilled about A-Chain either. I don't know if you guys are or not, but still good value. Can't hate it. Pretty good pick. Then his only trade was the DJ Moore trade, where he sent a first and a second in exchange for DJ Moore, which I think it was a little steep. But sometimes you just got to pay to get your guy, and like I said, I can't be mad at him for going and getting a guy, especially to pair up with Fields. I know he's all about the stacks, so fair play, fair play. When I look at his roster, pretty solid, right? The problem with Irv and being solid is solid good enough. You look at the lineup, he's got what? Who does he have? He's got the Bengal stack, right? And then he's got Najee, Kyle Pitts, D Hop, Mike Evans. I think I'm missing somebody, but you get the picture. It's a pretty solid lineup. But it's just like, is it better than some of these like upper tier? No. It's better than all of the lower tiers or all of the bottom 5 teams? Probably. So I think he's just kind of in the middle. As an offseason grade, I'm going to give him a C minus. Basically, it's a pretty average offseason. The DJ Moore trade was a little bit of an overpay, so I'm going to give him a minus for that just based on the trade value. I currently have him ranked 7th in my preseason rankings. Think it's pretty appropriate. I think he's right in the middle. Wouldn't be surprised if he snuck in the playoffs, but also, would I really be surprised if he didn't? Not really. Moving on to number 8, we have Trevor, who added plus 2,360 keep trade cut value to his team this offseason. Don't be fooled by being number 8th on this list. I actually really like what Trevor did this year. He for sure was at a big time crossroads, I think, with his team. All of the starters were 26 plus years old, and he said, "F it, push more chips into the table." Um, and I think he made some moves that I think made him maybe the clearest win now team in the league. That with the age and the lack of assets that he owns himself. But to not to flip the script, he did add three rookies, one in each round, to give his team a little bit of youth. Dalton Kincaid is a nice pick in the first round. Tank Bigsby in the second seems to be solid-ish, and Michael Wilson, who's been a sleeper on everybody's radar, in the third is not too bad. I really like that draft. Combine that when you add he traded for Mark Andrews and Devontae Adams, most notably. Uh, Absolutely great ads for him this year as he tries to win it all. Uh, but when I look about what he gave up, this is where I think it's a little bit of a reason why he is at eighth on this list. He gave up two 26 picks. I think it was a one and a two, and a 25 third. He also gave up Aaron Jones and three young receivers. I believe two of those were Hodgins and Collins, which I wasn't really that high on when I was talking about Dakota. So take that for what you will. But he did give up quite a bit to obtain Adams, Andrews, and all of that. So yeah, currently in 2023, that sounds pretty good to me. I mean, maybe in a year or two, if he doesn't win the league or if he has a disastrous season, it'll look like ass. But as we sit right now, I can't really fault him for really going after it. I really like it when teams who are at a crossroads like him, either one way or the other, just kind of go, just pick a direction and go, whether it blows up or you want to just keep going for that chip. Um, just make a decision and then go for it. I kind of like that about his off season. What I don't like is the fact that he has two picks in total in the next 3 years. Um, so it just kind of depends on your managerial preferences, what you would grade Trevor. For me, I would probably give him an A minus because I like the players that he got in. I love Kincaid. I love Andrews and Adams. Bigsby and Wilson are nice depth pieces, hopefully in the future for him. So yeah, that's why I'm kind of leaning towards the good grade for Trevor rather than the bad one. He really made his team a more viable championship contender, maybe. And maybe I'm stupid, but I kind of think so. So I don't know. Uh, the only question, I guess, is the same as Irv's. Is this roster good enough to take down some of the top tier teams? Now, do I think Trevor could get the first round bye and win that conference? Absolutely, maybe easily. But I don't know if some of these other teams in the apartment conference, probably the top four, I'm not sure if this roster competes with that. You know what I'm saying? But only time will tell. So we'll find out. That take it aged like spoiled milk. So let's move it. Trev is actually currently ranked fifth in my preseason power rankings. Moving on to number 7, we have Kyle, who added 3,457 value points to his roster. Kyle managed to make the same amount of moves and trades as Irv did this year, which is almost, which is definitely a feat all by itself. Yeah, and I believe I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what that trade was. I think it was Luke Musgrave. He traded back in the third round for Luke Musgrave, gave it up for uh, Saber Hutchinson, another third round pick this year, and a future third in order to draft Musgrave. He also brings in Rashi Rice from the second round with his own pick. And now I know I recorded this after some post trades. We know we had a busy trade day today. But I wrote this up before, so I really didn't like factor that into the calculations. So that's another thing to think about. I think he shipped off a couple quarterbacks today. I haven't really looked at the trades to be honest. But yeah, when you look at Kyle's roster, right, it is really good. It has no holes, and if I had his roster, I probably wouldn't have made that many moves, or at least that many drastic moves either. I mean, he's got running back is solid, quarterback is good, wide receivers are great, tight end is pretty good. I'm not the biggest Hawk fan, but he's can't deny he's an upper echelon fantasy tight end. As far as a offseason grade, I'm going to give him a C. Kind of not a lot happened, but that's kind of what I would have done too if I was in his position. I have Kyle ranked number 3 in my preseason power rankings. Um, the lineup of Justin Herbert, Josh Jacobs, Ramondre, Tyreek, Sun God, Hawk, and Garrett Wilson is absolutely nutty. Should be a fun roster to root for this year, Kyle. We'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. Halfway home, boys. At number 6, Liam comes in. Maybe to the surprise of many, based on what he added this year. But he added a total of 5,019. Excuse me. Excuse me. Woo! That had been coming for a while. But yeah, we're talking about Liam here. He's coming in at number 6. He added a total value of plus 5,019 to his team. Let me talk about Liam's team, right? You know, and I know, and he knows that his team has maybe perhaps gone through the biggest change out of any other team this year. I mean, before we get too far along, I'd probably give him like, I don't know, an A on his offseason, probably. He's been at the bottom for, I don't know, for forever, probably since the inception of the league, right? But he totally flipped the script this offseason. He added the number 1 rookie, Bijan Robinson, in addition to the Texans quarterback receiver duo in the draft with CJ Stroud and Tank Dell. He also made perhaps the early trade favorite for, or the early favorite for trade of the year, I should say, which was, of course, adding Christian McCaffrey, Cooper Kupp, Travis Kelce, and Jamal Williams for Trey McBride, 4 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. On top of that, he added Aaron Rodgers for Baker Mayfield and what turned out to be Luke Schoonmaker, and got some new receiver depth by adding Deontay Johnson for a second and 2/3. I know that's a mouthful, and if you weren't keeping score at home, I'll sum it up for you. He gave up 7 draft picks and 3 players to perhaps assemble the best roster this league has ever seen? Question mark. I mean, just look at this lineup. You got Aaron Rodgers, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Cooper Kupp, Calvin Ridley, Travis Kelce, and Breece Hall. That's an absolute straight up bitch to play against, let alone get a win off of. It'll be very interesting because his landscape totally flipped from bottom feeder to maybe the biggest league favorite in history. Um, am I just overhyping it up, or am I? I mean, this could easily be all true in my opinion. But then again, I am biased. I gave him like 3 of my players from last year, so keep that in mind as well. No surprise here, but Liam is ranked number 1 in my preseason um, power rankings. Moving on to number 5, we have myself at a total of 5,493 in keep trade cut value. Well, what do I have to say about my off season? Well, I think it's very safe to say that I was bored this year. I traded pretty much everyone other than Swift and Zeke for my championship starting lineup to other teams in the league. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. In terms of my grade, my off season is definitely up for debate, depending on what you prefer to do. I definitely got a nice haul in return for all those star players, but at the same time, I also dished off a ton of top 10 guys and a lot of upper echelon players at their position. So I really think it could go from anywhere from like a D minus to like a B plus, depending on how you like to operate personally. But for now, I'm gonna play it safe. I'm gonna give myself a B minus. I did get a big haul, chipped off a lot of good players. We already said that. Um, but I'm going with B minus because I decided it was time for me to cash in on my players. I thought, or the fear of just holding on to them, where hey, I might make the playoffs, I might win a playoff game again, maybe get into the championship. I didn't feel like I was going to win it again this year, and the fear of getting half the value or none of the value. Some of these guys might fall off a cliff. Not saying they will, but it's happened in the past. I wanted to cash in before it was too late, because that would be my biggest fear in all of dynasty fantasy football, if I'm being honest. Um, yeah, I mean, if we want to go through the moves, I think I've made quite a bit, and considering I'm the one bringing in the podcast and stuff, you're probably not too interested in all the moves that I made, but I will sum it up for you guys. the results of my trade have given my team Chris Olave, Kyler Murray, Alexander Madison, Bryce Young, Zay Flowers, Paris Campbell, 5 first rounders and 2 thirds. Yeah, like I said, the haul was very vast, but it does kind of seem weird when you figure out what I gave up. Kelsey Cup, AJ Brown, CMC, Trevor Lawrence, plus I think more like a couple picks and Trey McBride, guys like that. It's definitely making my job of replacing their value very, very difficult, but I'm going to give it my best go at it over the next couple years. Should be very fun being a rebuilding team. At least I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, I'm biased. I do like what I did with my offseason. Do love that I hit the reboot button. I kind of felt like I traded for all those players instead of drafted them for that championship team last year. So I kind of wanted to draft my own and see where that would go, and just in all honesty. But like I said before, giving up those players could very easily qualify me for a D- grade, and I wouldn't be too mad at you. So yeah, in terms of rankings in the in terms of the preseason power ranking, I put myself at number 11. I don't think that's a surprise. Moving on to number 4 in offseason value, that we have Tommy at plus 6,759 value points. Now, Tommy's a self-proclaimed boring offseason manager, and I think there's some truth to that, as he only made 1 pick in the draft and 1 trade. If I remember right, I'm sorry if I get some of these facts wrong. Just don't scrutinize me, all right? But going back to his trade, he traded perhaps maybe the best young asset he had, depending on your stance on JT. Of course, I'm talking about Chris Olave. That was a trade with me where he got Darnell Mooney, what turned out to be Quentin Johnson, and 2 24 second round picks. As far as keep trade cut goes, they make it seem that he absolutely violated me on that one, but I can't really complain when I've got Chris Olave, one of my favorite players. But that's enough about me. Back to Tommy. This was a good trade for him. Not really. I mean, a 4-for-1 asset to asset ratio, asset coming in to coming out. He's probably going to recoup some of that value, if not exceed that value, depending on how good QJ is. He also, with that trade, acquired 3 picks before his next available one in 2025, which is just as big as anything else because his team was kind of in the middle where it didn't have a lot of picks. And it also was kind of like not the best roster, to put it nicely, I guess. So it was kind of a dove that he got to, he got some more picks to help maybe make his team a little bit better in the next couple years. Obviously, his roster is far from perfect, but I don't feel like it's a barren wasteland like Max's and mine. Um, looking into his season and his outlook, I find it a little hard for him to get outside of the bottom 5 just based on some of the strength of these other teams in the league. Looking at his team, Josh Allen and JT are good. Pierce is solid. Receivers and tight end are a little shaky, but who knows how it will go. I'm usually wrong on all these preseason predictions anyways, but I'm going to give him a B off-season grade for winning that trade with me, even though I think everyone would like to have Chris Olave. He did get good value for him. I can't deny that. Tommy is currently ranked number 9th in my preseason power rankings. Moving on to number 3, we have Jansen at plus 12,992 value. That's kind of a big jump from Tommy. Much like myself, Jansen's team has gone through some changes. No denying that. You look at Jansen's value, it's kind of no shocker that he has such a high score. He traded CD Lamb, but the haul he got for CD Lamb was absolutely amazing. He got Terry McLaurin, 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick is a pretty damn good return value on CD Lamb, if you ask me. He also made a trade that sent George Kittle and Nick Chubb away for Jahan Dotson, and another first rounder and another second rounder. I guess when you look at his team and you look at Jansen as a whole, you might be looking at the newest Commander fan in town, which is kind of whack to say. I didn't even know they had fans. But going back to that Kittle and Chubb trade, it puzzled me. I'm not going to lie at first. I kind of thought he was getting the short end of the stick in that 3-team deal. But now that I've had some time to digest it and process it a bit, I don't think it's so bad. I think it's on par with previously made trades in terms of values for the similarly caliber players. I don't think that made sense, but you get the picture. Um, when you break it down, Dotson in 25 seconds seems right for Kittle, and Charbonnet for Chubb. Well, it isn't actually that even now that I actually broke it down. Charbonnet for Chubb doesn't look so good now, but you just never know with rookies. And I know I took to the chat last night and I was like, not the biggest Charbonnet fan at all, but I do think that I'm usually wrong whenever I have a strong opinion about a player. I'm sorry, it's been one of those days. Um, I'm just talking out of my ass too. Um, yeah, but you never know with rookies, right? Charbonnet could be great, Walker could get hurt, and Charbonnet could take over, and we could never be looking back, and that looks like a steal. But I'm kind of not betting on it. Anyways, I can't really fault Jansen for what he's doing. He got some youth, he got some draft capital, and he still has a pretty decent roster. Most importantly, the lineup I think as it currently stands is Mahomes, Dalvin Cook, Cam Akers, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Darren Waller, and Jahan Dotson. Man, memory's getting better. I think that is far from the worst starting lineup in the league. Uh, we'll see. Like I said, I think he's in that middle tier of teams in the league right now. And I think I have to give him an A. That's some good value, honestly, in my opinion. He's currently ranked eighth in my preseason power rankings. Moving on to number two, we have Max at plus 24,015 in terms of keep trade cut value. Max could be number one based on, a loan that he drafted people that have fantasy value. Um, but the addition of 8 rookies obviously is huge for this team. As I just said, he really doesn't have a ton of fantasy relevant players now. Hopefully, he's got some gems in there. Hopefully, the rebuild starts to get going a little bit as he goes into 2024, where he's got 3 first-round picks. Most notably, he added JSN at the 3, which I think could be a potential cornerstone for him to help rebuild. As far as trades go, I think he only dished off Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr, and he gave a 24 second rounder, Baker Mayfield, and obviously what turned out to be Luke Schoonmaker in the 3rd round. For Carr and Rodgers, just to summarize, um, definitely not needle moving trades, but hey, it's Max. What do you expect, right? I'll give him an A minus. I mean, even though I don't think any of these draft picks and trades that he made is going to help him win any more games. I do like that he dumped a couple older players for at least some assets, right? That's not too bad. A minus seems good because from what he had, he drastically improved his team, clearly with the value and just by looking at his roster. That being said, he's still ranked number 12 in my power rankings to start the year. Sorry. And finally, number one, we've got Hunter with an astounding plus 29,372 points of keep trade cut value. Um, Hunter has had the best offseason for sure. Out of us all, he had a lethal combination of draft capital and trades where he ended up making out pretty well on those. Yeah, when you look around what he gave up, he had 6 draft picks, all within the first 2 rounds. Most notably, Jahmyr Gibbs, Anthony Richardson, Michael Mayer, and then Hyatt, Downs, and Reed to round him out. Pretty solid draft picks. In addition to adding Tua for Dak, James Conner and Aaron Jones, and Hollywood Brown also joined his team. Those are awesome. All of those players, I think, are solid additions to his team. And especially when you look at what he gave up, right? He gave up Dak, what turned out to be Jordan Addison and Sam Laporta in terms of pick value, and he got Aaron Jones, James Conner, and Hollywood Brown in those trades. Oh, and Tua, I guess if you throw in Tua as well. So yeah, it's not really a secret why he ends up at number one on this list. It seems like he made out very well on those trades. Also added a ton of promising rookies. Uh, that's why his score is so high. As far as his team outlook this year, I still think he could be a year or two away from competing for a championship. Like I said, I had him in that middle tier. Um, but I think for sure he has broken out of that bottom tier. No more top 5 picks for Hunter. You look at that lineup of Tua, Gibbs, Aaron Jones, T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, Michael Mayer, Max Mayer to Dakota, lol, and Drake London. That is a lineup full of upside. Um, you know, a great offseason is all I can say about Hunter. I'm giving him an A. I'm also starting to get a little bullish on Hunter. I know he's got a couple wide receiver twos. Drake London could be a miss, could be a hit, not in terms of draft, but in terms of fantasy production in 2023. Um, this team's got a lot of promise and a lot of upside. I would not be surprised if he snuck his way into the playoffs this year. He is ranked 6th in my preseason power rankings. Perfect. All right, so we went through all the teams, right? You know, 12 through 1. I also gave you a preseason power rankings. I know they were a little out of order in terms of the power rankings, so I'm going to break that down for you real quick. I'm also going to give you my record predictions. I'm not going to go through wins and losses of every single team. That would take too long, but I'm going to give you the power ranking in order with their combined record and a little bit of commentary, just so we're on the same page. Number 12 in the power rankings, I have Max, and I have him going 0 and 14. Now, do I actually think he's going to go 0 and 14? No. It's just when I looked at his schedule, how on earth am I supposed to predict this guy to win any games when he has the worst roster every week? Um, he's not going to go 0 and 14. I don't know how many games he'll win. He might not win more than, I would say, a maximum of 2. I would say it's going to be a tough one, but that's what he wants. He's going to have a nice draft next year with 3 first-round picks. This is probably a dream season for Max if he ends up 0 and 14. At number 11, we have myself. I ended up, when I did wins and losses, ended up at 2 and 12. Yeah, one of those wins is Max, and I feel like I got to at least steal another one at some point. My roster is a little weak. It's young. It's all 25 or younger. As it stands right now in my starting lineup, I don't really know about my rookies. I don't really know about some of these players like Madison. What's Swift going to be? What is Dulcich going to be? Like, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm have the best team um, in a lot of the weeks that I play. So yeah, 2 and 12, probably a maximum of 4 wins, probably a minimum of 1 win. Looking for myself. Moving on to number 10, I have Dakota at 3 and 11. Uh, kind of the same thing. He's got 2 guys. See, that's what's funny is the way Max had it at 12. He has JSN, but that's not really a guy yet, right? I've got 1 guy in Olave. Dakota has 2 guys, um, in Hurts and Pollard, and he gets an extra win for that, as I'm just realizing. But anyways, he's at number 10 at 3 and 11. Kind of hard. The league is very top heavy, and there's a lot of good teams. I wouldn't be surprised if he won like 5 games, 5 6 games, but I would be a little shocked if anything above that, based on the other teams in the league personally. Moving on to number 9 in the power rankings, I had Tommy. I had him finishing 4 and 10. Uh, I just did this based on how I was feeling going up and down his schedule. But 4 and 10 actually seems a little bit low for JT and Josh Allen. He could maybe win 5 or 6, but I don't think much more than that. Like I said, for Dakota, there's just plenty of other teams that I think are just better. Moving on to number 8, I have Jansen at 6 and 8. I have Jansen at 6 and 8. The team, like I said, is very solid. The Mahomes, the Cook, the Akers, the Metcalf, McLaurin, Waller, those kind of guys are all very solid. The problem is I don't know if that's going to be in the cards for Jansen to really make a championship push, especially after trading Chubb and Kittle. I think he's going to be very fine with finishing in the middle of the pack, as he tries to maybe get more value off of his team while he can. I know he doesn't own his first round pick, but if he gets the right offer, might as well keep rebuilding if I was him. He's at number 8. Moving on to number 7, I have Irv at 8 and 6. Irv's team is really good on paper. It has been for a couple of years. Uh, like I said, it's solid, but is it like better than some of these other rosters? That remains to be seen. It could be It could also not be. Um, he's also somebody that I think I wouldn't be surprised and wouldn't make it if he made the playoffs. I mean, obviously he's the number 7, so he's the first guy out at 8-6. It'll be interesting, but I do think he'll be no better than like the fifth best team in the league. But 8-6 seems kind of generous in my opinion. Or it kind of, I think 7-7. I think we play 14 weeks, right? I really hope so because that would be really embarrassing. But 8-6 is where I got him at right now. Not too shabby. We'll definitely be competing for a playoff spot this year. Moving on to number 6, maybe I'm a little bit victim of the moment as he finished number 1 in offseason grade, but I have Hunter coming in at number 6 at also 8-6, and him beating Irv based on points. Should be a fun race. I'm hoping that actually happens, that we have a point race going into the playoffs, just for entertainment purposes. Yeah, I have him sneaking in at 8-6. We just went over his team. It's pretty solid, just like Irv's. A lot of upside. That's why I gave him the nudge over Irv for the time being. Moving on to number 5, and I think this is where we get into everybody here, 5 through 1, is thinking that they can win it all this year. I have Trevor, who surprisingly ended up at 9-5 when I was going through wins and losses. He might think that's a little low, but somebody's got to lose. I mean, there's 5 great teams, I would say, in this league right now. Um, yeah, but somebody like you can't win them all, and I think I tried to like make sure there wasn't a truly dominant team when I was going through, but 9-5 would be good enough for him to get the first round bye because 4 of the next teams are all in the same conference. But yeah, I think this team should make some noise and should probably have the first round bye in that conference. Um, Moving on to number 4, we have Kyle, 10-4, as a wild card spot coming in the playoffs. Unfortunate for Kyle, or unfortunate for whoever finishes 4th in the apartment conference, as they'll likely be the 6th seed going into the playoffs. Um, we've already been through everyone's roster, but 10-4 is a pretty solid year. Like you take that all every day. That's automatic playoffs, in my opinion. Not much else needs to be said. At number 3, we have Riley at 10-4 as well. I think there's a head-to-head win or points or whatever. I don't know. Somebody had to come out on top, right? And they had the same records. Don't kill me on that one. But Riley finished at 10-4. I think the tiebreaker for me was that he has Trevor Lawrence and he's my favorite player. So that's not a really good analysis of why I have him at 3, but I do like his players maybe a tad more. At number 2, we have Lewis. Like I said, no holes. I have him at 11-3. I think that uh, he should have a very, very good year with, like I said, the best wide receiver core maybe this league has ever seen. I really like it. I really think he finishes there at 11-3, probably no worse than 9-5, and that's if people get hurt. Moving on, and then obviously at number 1, only guy left is Liam with the best record in the first round bye in the apartment conference. I have him at 12-2. Like I said, I'm biased. I gave him 3 of my championship players, in Cup, Kelsey, and CMC, so I'm going to still kind of root for them. Is probably why he's gotten the nod throughout the whole offseason, in my opinion, as the best team, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I have him at 12-2. That's going to be hard to do. To just lose twice, especially with a bunch of other good teams. But I had to have somebody on top, and he ended up being on top. I just like it. 3 top 5 dynasty running backs, 2 pretty solid receivers. Cup was a wide receiver 1 2 years ago. Kelsey, of course, is great. Like this team is pretty scary. So I think it's appropriate that he's at number 1, in my opinion. So that being said, we went through the power rankings. I'll go through them one more time. Max, Joey, Dakota, Tommy, Jansen, Irv, Hunter, Trevor, Kyle, Riley, Lou, Liam, in that order. Um, as far as playoffs go, the 1 seed, we have Liam and as the 1 seed, Trevor as the 2 seed, both of them getting buys in the first round of the playoffs. As far as the wild card matchups, we've got Lou versus Kyle, which is a 3 versus 6 seed based on how we seed in the league. And then we've got Hunter versus Riley in the 4-5 matchup. Yeah, pretty good matchups. I mean, I don't really want to go through them yet because it's all subjective. But the winner of Hunter and Riley would play Liam. Winner of Lewis and Kyle would play Trev. excellent matchups, and then of course it trickles down until we have a champion. Obviously, I think I'm going to pick Liam to win it all right now, just because I like his roster quite a bit. And that's just my pick. I'm usually wrong, so uh, we'll see. We'll see. I'm very excited to get this season going. Pressure less season for me this year. I've got no expectations. I can just watch my team grow and take L after L personally. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to be back. I'm excited to bringing you guys some content. Um, yeah, let me know what you think. Where you think I'm wrong? Um, what do you think I did stupid or like I don't know. Who do you have winning it all? How about that? That's a good way to put it. Who's winning it all this year, boys? I definitely want to know. Let's get that chat popping. All right, that's all for me. Thanks again for watching. I'll see y'all again soon.